Love can be unconditional, but it doesn't exist unless we're conscious that it's unconditional. I don't think that there can be one without the other. You can have unconditional love. You can love somebody unconditionally, and it's beautiful, but if there's not a corresponding awareness within us, then we're not even aware that it's happening. And that's pretty much true for all experience. Welcome to the Embodied Relationship Experience podcast. I am your host, John Wineland. I'll introduce Jennifer in just a moment. If you are watching on YouTube, please go ahead and like and subscribe and share the podcast with anybody who you think might benefit. It really helps us with the algorithm. If you are listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify or anything else, please rate and review. That will also help get the word out. Sitting to my left is the lovely and wonderful Jennifer Vega. She is my right hand in so many ways and is going to deliver the questions that we took from the audience. So what I'd like to do every few weeks is, just create a space where I can answer your questions on everything from sacred intimacy to embodiment practice, to men's work, women's work, anything that, is covered in the world of embodiment. And we have a list of questions.
Yes, we do.
We're going to say hi. Jen?
Hi.
Yeah. Say hi to the people, Jen. Yeah. So we have a list of questions, and she's just going to fire them off, and I'm going to just address them, one by one, or some of them are kind of similar. But just know that we're going to do as best we can in about 45 minutes to answer these questions. And when we finish answering them, we'll post it on Instagram. We'll tag all of you that sent in questions. Okay.
Yeah, let's go. I love getting these questions.
Let's rock and roll.
All right. So the first question is, how would you describe sacred intimacy and embodiment, and a good place to start this practice?
Okay, let's tease those two apart. Let's start with embodiment. So embodiment is the practice of bringing your awareness into the body. So if we think of how we live a good chunk of the time, our awareness is on our thoughts, right? We're thinking about our thoughts. We're bringing our awareness to our thoughts so much of the time that produces what so many people complain about, like he's always in his head, she's always in her head, right? And when we can train our awareness to be not just in the body, like feeling my legs or feeling the hair on the, on my forearms, but we train our awareness to be deeper into the body, into the deep spaces of the body. So for example, the root chakra, the perineum, the cervix, the base of the internal penis for a man, the womb, the heart, the deep parts of the heart, the root of the heart, the deep parts of the throat, the back of the throat. So when we're bringing our awareness and we're bringing our breath to those parts of our body, we are said and felt to be more embodied. So that's one way to think about embodiment. It's really the meditative and yogic practice of bringing your awareness deeper into the wisdom of the body versus just following the thoughts of the mind. So that's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is, and this is where it starts to get into advanced practice, another way to think about embodiment is that it's the practice of bringing sort of esoteric textures and energies and archetypes and concepts through the body and making them real in the body so that you not only feel them, but people around you and in the room can feel them. So for example, we can say something like fierce love, right? There's this concept of fierce love, loving somebody fiercely. Well, that's just it's just an esoteric concept, but there are practices and ways for you to fill every cell of your body with fierce love, to be the transmission through your body of fierce love, to be the transmission of devotion, to be the transmission of naughty sexual energy, to be the transmission of, this could be virtually anything, right? There are so many various textures and ranges, especially for feminine practitioners. It's everything from, making your body the expression of softly falling snow to making your body the expression of, exploding volcano, to all these various textures of love. Fierce love I mentioned, grounded love, the wide expanse of love, the sexual flow of love. It really, when we start to think of our bodies as instruments of expression and instruments of love, then, a whole new world opens up. And now, not only do we have a deeper, more expressed relationship with our own bodies, but we have more capacity to give love in all of its various forms to other people. So that's embodiment. That was actually longer than I thought it was going to be, but I wanted to cover it well. So sacred intimacy is the practice of intimacy from the spiritual level. And there's a lot of ways to define that. What makes an intimacy sacred is that we're not just relating from the surface. We're not just relating body to body or mind to mind. We're relating from deep heart places. We're relating from, again, these deeper spots in the body. So to be intimate, heart to heart, or to be intimate from the deepest parts of our bellies and wombs, or to be intimate from so intimate that our spines are merging, or our hearts are merging, or consciousness and love are in this dance. So when we think about sacred intimacy, we're thinking really about the intimacy of depth. We're thinking about the intimacy of our divine natures together, not just our physical bodies or even our emotional bodies. That's all beautiful in the human realm. But sacred intimacy includes not just the physical experience of intimacy and the emotional experience of intimacy. It's the divine experience of intimacy that happens when I'm feeling the infinite nature of life through me, and you're feeling the infinite nature of life through you, and we're seeing each other and sexing each other and loving each other from that place. Within that, in the framework that I teach and that I've learned, there's sort of a divine masculine and divine feminine essence that you can embody, you can learn to embody, and then sort of love each other from that place. So I think a really easy way to take a look at what sacred intimacy is, it's loving each other and being physically and sexually intimate with each other from the deepest parts of you, from the infinite parts of you, from the part of you that is love eternal, from the parts of you that is infinite consciousness expanding as the cosmos. And once we start to train, because it is a training, we start to train our bodies to love from those places, a whole new fucking world of beauty opens up.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does. Okay, what's next?
All right, so next is about you. So people want to know if you have a spiritual practice or a teacher, which I love this question.
Yeah. So yes, I have a spiritual practice that I have been doing since I was 7. My mother became a Buddhist when I was 7, my sister was 6, and they took us out of Catholic school, and my mom said, okay, we're now Buddhists. And so I learned quite early how to meditate, how to chant, and it's a practice that I've had with me my entire life. Within that, my greatest teacher in this work was David Data, and I worked with David for almost 15 years. And but I also have trained with quite a few other teachers. I've trained with a teacher who has many years, 20 years training in the shamanic realms. I've trained with a martial arts sifu for almost 4 years. I've trained with another man who lives in Kauai and who is, I don't even really know how to describe what he does, but he's been an amazing teacher of mine. And then I've also had a teacher in the realm of Neo-Tantra for many years, about 10 years. So I have quite a few teachers. I spend a lot of time and money investing in new teachers and new training. I've spent, quite a bit of money because I consider it my continuing education. And most years, I didn't last year. Last year was the first year I didn't have an active relationship with a teacher for almost, 15 years. Yeah, I was really just letting life kind of direct me, but I'm starting up again with one of my teachers again this year. So yeah, no, I'm very serious about my continuing education and have done all kinds of trainings in many different spiritual realms, from Toltec shamanism to classic Vipassana and other kinds of classic meditation, to Nichiren Shoshu Buddhism, which comes from Japan. So I'm kind of a spiritual mutt, and I've pulled Tibetan Buddhism. I've pulled a lot of pieces from a lot of different practices.
Yeah. And when you didn't have a teacher, you were deeply in your daily practice, like
always.
always.
I have a daily practice, and those people who are in my programs, it's not the same every day. It varies, but it's usually some combination of chanting, of yoga, of qigong, of meditation. I do a lot of walking meditations. I try to walk for 30 to 40 minutes every morning and do that as a meditation. So I'm pretty in. I'd say the first hour or two of my day is some form of meditative, yogic, or some kind of movement practice. Yeah,
I can attest to that.
And I need every minute of it. Yeah.
Oh, I like this one.
Okay.
Is unconditional love pure consciousness?
That's a heady question.
That's why I like
Probably
it.
from a dude. So some people may have different opinions about this. So in the framework of masculine and feminine essences, think of it as this way. Let's call it God, although not everybody calls it God. In Buddhism, we call this the mystic law. And in the mystic law, there is the form of energy, and then there's the form of consciousness. And so we could say that the feminine, the pure feminine essence, is energy, which is love, right? And that consciousness itself is the part of us that is aware that love exists, right? So any experience, whether it be the experience of love, whether it be experience of pain, whether it be experience of joy, ecstasy, means nothing if we're not consciously aware of it. So an easy way to tease this apart is to think that the masculine spiritual tendency is consciousness, is empty, vast, unchanging, infinite consciousness. And that the feminine experience is the flow of love and devotion. Depending on which tradition you're part of, love can be unconditional, but it doesn't exist unless we're conscious that it's unconditional, right? So I don't think that there can be one without the other, right? You can have unconditional love. You can love somebody unconditionally, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful when we can do it. But if there's not a corresponding awareness within us, then we're not even aware that it's happening. And that's pretty much true for all experience. Now, with that said, there are certain Indian traditions that seat consciousness, the root of consciousness, in the center of the heart. And I actually think that's a really beautiful way to think about it. And when you feel into your core heart, when you feel into the part of your heart that is infinite and spacious, it would make sense that consciousness emanates from there. Who knows, right? Where consciousness, it just is. Consciousness has no beginning or end. Love has no beginning or end, really. It's not like there's the flow of love, when you think of it on a meta term, is infinite. And so I don't think it's as important to sort of try to understand these concepts as it is to feel them. Mm-hmm. Right?
Like feel pure love.
Yeah, to feel like, so pure love, pure unconditional love expressed through every cell of the body may occur as being awakened, right? Mm-hmm. Being fully removed from thought and just resting as pure consciousness, which is something that especially men have been trying to do for tens of thousands of years, will also occur as blissful openness. So depending on your spiritual practice, I wouldn't mind fuck yourself too much over this. I would just really, think about the experience of pure consciousness and the experience of pure love over trying to understand them as intellectual concepts.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, here's one. What would you do if you were into sacred sexuality versus your long-term partner into being like just into hard sex?
Okay, so this person, I'm just going to try to extrapolate a little bit about
Yeah.
what's happening. So I think what this person is asking is they are wanting, I don't know if it's a he or she or they, so they are wanting to have a more sacred, what they would consider sacred intimacy, and their partner is more into kind of
Just
hard
getting
sex. Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know if getting off, but kind of more like they didn't say that. So I would just assume just hard sex, right? Okay. Let's expand this a little bit and get to sort of the heart of the question, which is how can our practice of sacred sexuality evoke in our partner a deeper, more sacred place in them? For those of you who are Game of Thrones fans, I like giving this example.
So good.
If you remember, and you can look it up, right? If you remember in season 1 of Game of Thrones, Daenerys was given to Khal Drogo, Jason Momoa, who mistreated her, raped her, basically just treated her as a piece of meat. And she was sort of stuck in this situation. He was just trying to impregnate her and get off inside of her. And so it was this very abusive relationship. And she went to the village elder, this woman who was sort of the sacred sexual dakini, I guess you would call it, of the tribe, and asked her, what do I do? Like, this is horrible. And this woman gave her the advice of, not allowing the sex to be a certain way, but bringing her wild, fierce heart to him and making him see her as love. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. I might be getting the actual words wrong, but it was basically make him see you as love. Make him see you as the total expression of love. And so she goes to him that next night. Of course, he throws her around and gets very rough, and she's like, no. And she rather than let him take her from behind, which was his favorite way, she sat on top of him, looked him in the eyes, and opened as love. And what ensued was this deep-hearted connection, which then blossomed into this, legendary, at least for Game of Thrones fans, legendary love affair between the two of them. But it all came from her practice of making him see her as love. So if one or the other partner is committed to being the deep experience of love, masculine or feminine partner, it is going to deepen the experience. So is a practice. I'm not saying it's an easy practice, but it is a practice. And I'm not sure, since I'm not there with y'all, and I don't think I ever will be, but if there is a moment where you can put your hand on, I'm just going to assume it's a him, his chest, and, make him see you as love. And literally let your eyes soften, let your heart open, and make him look at you. If he closes his eyes, say, look at me, right? Same thing, right? If she closes her eyes, make her look at you. And so being a stand and being a demand, let's call it, for our partner's deep, open-hearted presence during sex is something worth fighting for. And I think a lot of people don't. A lot of people want to be good boys, good girls. We kind of fall into these habits of sex, but ultimately, and this can take so many different forms, but the concept is I am a stand for the deepest love between us in any moment, and I will not tolerate anything less.
And is it also about taking a risk, holding the pose, being with it?
Maybe. I mean, it's hard to say because it's going to be, every moment is different. Holding the pose is what she mentioned, is that practice of staying in it longer than you're comfortable. So making him see you as love might not just be a 5-second practice. It might be something you have to hold for a minute or 2 minutes or 30 minutes, right? Until he finally, or they finally feel your heart so much that they just can't pig out and use you, to get off, right? Which happens, right? This is a lot of people fall into this trap of just using each other to get off, as opposed to, fucking each other to God, which is a very famous David Deida saying. And it goes to what we talked about at the beginning of what makes intimacy sacred. It's that commitment to fuck each other to God rather than to just use each other to get off. Even with people you love, like even people who love each other fall into this habit of really just using each other to get off. And it's great for stress release and it's great for some oxytocin, but it's not the deepest thing available. It's actually kind of a shame and a missed opportunity. All right, what's next?
So we get this question a lot.
Mm-hmm.
How do you encourage your partner to get into this work? Whether it's a man or a woman. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Most people go about this the wrong way, especially women. So let me speak to the feminine partners first. So let's just start from the premise that relationship, if you're primarily feminine identified and he's primarily masculine identified, now you both have both, of course, right? Then whoever the feminine identified partner is primarily in the relationship is going to care about the relationship more, right? So the masculine identified partner, and again, this could be man or woman, but just whoever the masculine identified partner is, and this can change over years too. Like one partner can be more masculine for a few years, one partner can be more feminine for a few years, things can flip. But let's just say whoever is most into love is the one that's going to be caring about the relationship. It's going to be the feminine. The masculine in the relationship is going to be mainly focused on purpose and freedom, driven by purpose and freedom. And so if you are the one who's more into love and you want to call that out of your partner more, then the first step is your own personal practice, right? So rather than, and I get this all the time, which is rather than asking him or, tagging him on a post that I do or somebody does, right? Basically what you're saying to him is, you're not loving me the right way. You're not loving me the right way. You're not fucking me the right way. Maybe you should go learn from this guy how to do that. That rarely goes over very well, right? That rarely goes over well. So, but what can be done is you can come do the work and then show him through your body and your practice what it's doing for you. You can start to practice. You can get on the Embodied Relationship Experience platform, for example. Start doing the feminine practices. Let him feel those practices in you. Start bringing that openness to him, and he will notice. And then when he does, you might say, hey, I've really been digging these practices. Would you want to do one with me? Right? You can kind of step in and say, hey, would you want to do one with me? But it's not from a place of you're not doing this right. It's from a place of I'm enjoying this so much, which is a huge difference to him. If he could feel you're enjoying something so much and it's making your heart more full and it's making you feel more pleasure in your body and it's making you feel more alive, and then you invite him to come join you, chances are you're going to have a much better experience. Even though technically you're kind of leading, it's okay. It's okay. You can temporarily step in from this place of pleasure-filled, embodied love and invite him to come be with you. And then you just come to this platform that we have. It's very easy. It's free. If you want to come join for a few days, it's free. And you just basically push and play a practice and you guys practice together. And that's a great way to bring them into the work. That's one thing. David, my teacher, used to always give the practice of, hey, read one of his books in bed. And just when you read something that really feels good, like do a little moan or do a little sigh, or do a little, it's the same concept. Do something that lets him know you are enjoying what you're reading and it feels really good in your body. And then, of course, he will likely be like, what are you reading? And you're like, wow, this is just so sexy, or this is just so deep. This is really turning me on, the way he's talking about whatever. So there are much more artful ways to invite your partner into this work rather than kind of giving it as a subtle complaint. So it's one of these things that, there's a lot of trial and error, but I would definitely err on the side of being more artful in bringing your own practice. And this is true, for masculine identified humans as well. I get this question from my men's groups a lot, which is, how can I bring the practice that I'm doing, when we're out in the desert or wherever we are, how can I bring that practice home to my wife? And I'm always saying, you bring your best practice. Don't try to force her to practice with you. You just bring your deep breath. You bring your grounded presence. You bring your wide open heart. You bring your fierce love. You bring your, whatever, magic that you feel moving through your body. You bring these things and people will notice. People absolutely notice because you are now occurring as radiating something other than your thought-driven patterns. You're radiating love and depth and a deeper sexuality. It's quite palpable. So I guess the short answer is start with your own practice and let them feel you in that.
You become magnetic.
Yes, you do. Yeah. You absolutely become magnetic, right? And for women, I mean, there's a whole masterclass on the Embodied Relationship Experience platform about desire, about embodying desire. I would strongly suggest you check that out if you want to, kind of get into the practices.
Yeah. So this actually comes up in some of our intensives is how can I feel and hold her expression while meeting triggers that arise in her?
Okay. Yeah, this is a very consistent challenge for men. And we can come at it from a few different ways. So first things first is that any good masculine practice is about expanding your capacity to hold energy. So if we think that the feminine is energy, right? The feminine in us, the feminine in her, the feminine in the world, all experience, right? That's energy. And the more we can train, I mean, good men's work is not just about, pounding on your chest and, and primal screaming. Good men's work is around expanding your capacity to be with energy. Now, a good amount of the practices that we do in my men's programs are about expanding your nervous system and embodied capacity to be with more energy, to be with your own emotions in a way that's grounded, to be with her emotions in a way that's grounded. And it takes practice, it's probably the hardest practice to learn, which is how do I stay open, grounded, responsive, aware, wide-hearted, loving, playful, all of that shit while the storm is coming at me. It's very, very challenging for men. I don't think women understand how challenging it is. Yeah. And so what I will often see is women just sort of saying, well, I'm just going to be the feminine storm and I'm just going to say everything that I want to say, even if it's mean, even if it's, my wound dumping, even if it's this, even if it's that. And if he's a good, strong man, he should be able to hold it. That's absolute fucking bullshit. He can hold what he can hold based on his capacity in that moment. Even me. I have been doing this for years and I very much have limits. There's certain things I won't tolerate from a partner. I won't tolerate meanness. I won't tolerate name calling. I won't tolerate wound dumping and calling it sacred expression. So tolerating that from your feminine partner because you're supposed to hold space is actually not healthy. That is just like you wouldn't tell a woman to hold a man's unexpressed or uncontained rage. It's emotional abuse. It's no less emotional abuse if she's just dumping her wounds on you and you're just there holding it, trying to, be open and wide as love while you're crumbling and, crying inside. So I think the first thing I would say is it's a beautiful practice to expand your nervous system capacity to be with her. Yes. And part of being with her is not tolerating wound dumping, right? Not tolerating character assassination or whatever. These should be your boundaries. Maybe some people are kind of good at it. Some people are like, hey, just do whatever call me whatever you want. I love you. That's very high level practice. I'm not sure it serves. So I think the line that I'm telling men, and I'm also practicing this myself, is to be responsive and to meet her storm with love, to honor her experience. Things like, very easy things to say, like, that makes sense you'd feel that way. Or, yeah, I did that. I can see why that would hurt your feelings. Or, so if she's bringing you things that you've done that you can take responsibility for, and she's upset about them, a great way to soothe her nervous system is to just own it. Like, oh, you're right, I did that. That was unconscious of me. Or, you know what? I've done that a few times. I'm sorry, that's something I really need to look at. So you can learn to meet her hurt parts or her wounded parts about the things that you've done with validation, with open-heartedness, with some playfulness even. It's a little trickier, but you can certainly do that. And it's an art, brother. It's an art. And it's also, it's like a martial, I would consider a martial art, because it is so dependent on your breath, your nervous system capacity, your capacity to feel deeper. Like, what is she really upset about? What is she really upset about? Most men, a lot of men, oftentimes me, I'm not immune to this, will get caught up in the content of what she's saying and won't actually feel deeper into the hurt little girl or the part of her that, when you hurt her feelings, hopefully inadvertently. And so trying to train yourself in all of those ways is the meta practice.
Yeah. The breath part too is really important.
The breath part is super important. The deeper your breath, the slower your breath, the more you're actually working with your own nervous system to regulate your own nervous system. I talk about this a lot in the second pillar of sacred intimacy, that regulating your own nervous system by breathing, by grounding, by trying to stay relaxed, regulating your own nervous system and then regulating hers or theirs, right, allows for more safety to be built, more trust to be established, allows for her, for example, to come out of what might be a trauma state, right? Most people, when they're triggered, they're basically in a quasi or very real trauma state. And so coming at it from a down-regulated nervous system, hands on their body, breath deep, soft words, kind words, words of reassurance, words of validation, just everything that you can do, and you'll learn each partner's nervous system may need different things.
Yeah. Okay.
You got time for a couple more?
Great.
Yeah.
So when a safe masculine wants to give me something, I don't feel safe. How do I transmute that?
If we grew up in an environment where there was not a safe and trustable masculine presence, the imprint, and this could be true for, boy or girl, man, woman, other, if we grew up with parents, in this case masculine, a masculine identified human, that wasn't trustable, that wasn't available, that wasn't dependable, then that imprint is going to be the imprint of the original masculine that we received. And so we will be predisposed to see all other masculine beings, especially those that want to get romantic with us, right? We will see them through the lens of that imprint. Nobody's wrong. It's not your fault. It's just the way that we work. It's just the way that our nervous systems work. So having some awareness about that, about, the imprint I have, I'm going to put on you, and I'm going to get nervous the closer you get. Just saying that is a really beautiful piece of awareness, right? And just narrating sometimes, like, I know you only want to take care of me, and my heart is fluttering, and I'm feeling all these butterflies, and I'm feeling very scared. And just narrate, I'm scared, you're going to give me all this love, and then you're going to leave. Or I'm scared you're going to make me trust you, and then you're going to hurt me. And you just narrate, you just open. Narrating is a kind of opening up your heart, and you can narrate to them the things that are going on inside of you. The other thing that is much deeper practice is to, and you can, this falls under the realm of really beautiful, deep feminine practice, but of course men can do this and should do this, is to learn to open as love with whatever's coming through. So opening as love as desire, opening as love as anguish, opening as love as yearning, opening as love as rage, opening as love as, and this is, the quintessential feminine practice, is to open as love. And it is an embodied practice. It is something that you're literally feeling love and opening as love, kind of like a cosmic flower blooming. And as you do that, fear will come up. And so you show the fear and open as love. You might feel both fear and love at the same time. This is a really important distinction that I think most people don't get. And when they start getting into the practice of embodiment, it's often very surprising that they can hold two often contradictory feelings at the same time. You can be wide open as love and also mad as hell. You can be wide open as love and afraid. You can be wide open as love and yearning deeply. So it's an important part of practice, and we have a lot of practices on the ERE platform. The link is below if you guys want to ever get into that. We have a lot of practices that take you through how to do that. So, it's very...
I related to that one a lot. And my practice in what you just described actually brought me to a place of like feeling the worthiness, being able to receive it, and practicing with someone that was trustable.
Right. Feeling unworthy is a really common one, right? Feeling unworthy, feeling scared. Oftentimes, men will feel unworthy and women will feel scared, right? Which is just sort of natural. It makes sense. But the trick is to not put all of your awareness on that so that it collapses you. Because oftentimes what happens is when we start to put all our awareness on I'm afraid, the body just starts to like cover up, right? What we're talking about is opening, open heart, open chest, deep breath, soft belly. I'm afraid you're gonna hurt me. I'm afraid you're gonna leave, but it's not a collapse, right? And so learning to keep the body upright and open and moving and filled with breath and open-hearted, no matter what emotions are moving through, is a very deep part of this work.
Okay. This is a good one too. They're all good ones. What are ways to show devotion both to a monk in a monastery and when he's focused on you?
Okay. I love this question because I think my brothers could use more devotion, right? I'm always a stand for good men receiving more devotion from their partners. So let's start with the monk. So remembering, if he is a monk in a cave, he's a monk in a cave because he's seeking God in some form, whatever he calls God, whatever you call God, whatever divine is to you. I'm, like I said, I'm a spiritual mutt. So if you can feel that as a feminine partner, as his feminine partner, that he is away from you because he is getting filled with the divine, right? That is be devotional to that, right? Be devotional to man seeking God. That's a beautiful thing to be devotional to. That's a really important thing for him to feel. So he doesn't feel, otherwise he's torn like my heart is telling me to connect to the divine, but my woman's mad at me because I'm not spending time at home right now. That's a conflict you really want to remove, right? You want your partners, both partners, whatever configuration of relationship you have, you want your partners to seek the divine, right? And so being devotional to that act and really showing him in all kinds of ways, right? There's all kinds of beautiful, creative ways you can show him, greeting him really warmly, really like filling your body with devotion to his seeking of God, right? Doing your own seeking of God. Yeah, devoting, while he's in the monastery, you can be on the mat, opening your body to love, right? Which is the quintessential feminine expression of God, right? Love through the body is the expression of God in the feminine. So really being able to practice with him, right? Here's another really cool thing that you can do, right? And I've done this in my relationships and I felt it. I've actually had partners when I'm out in the desert in Panamint practice and send me that practice. So she was sending me Shakti in the desert and sending me love in the desert. And I could feel it. You know, I was leading a bunch of men. I could really feel it. So don't be afraid to, you know, practice in the esoteric and energetic realms. I know probably some people are going, well, woo woo, but you can often feel it. So meet him, you know, meet him with your practice and meet him from your devotion to the goddess, meeting his devotion to God, and come together and love each other that way. So that's when he's, you know, off in the, you know, in the cave meditating. So the masculine loves winning, right? And winning to a man who loves you. I mean, I love the way Alison Armstrong talks about this, right? She's not the only one, but that men want to love you well. They want to provide for you. They want you to feel safe. They want you to feel cared for, right? Most good men, I'm sure there's a lot of assholes out there, but most good, decent men really want you to feel loved and cared for. And so when they're focused on you, if they don't feel that makes any difference, like if you're kind of like, there's no true experience of joy or gratitude in your body, if it's sort of, you know, like, well, it's about time we went on a date, asshole, you know what I mean? Like it was just kind of this closed thing. They're not gonna be inspired to continue to do it. But if they feel appreciated, I mean, this is kind of classic men's stuff 101. If they feel appreciated at a very deep level at the fact that out of all the things in the world he could be focused on, his mission, his purpose, the divine, his brothers, he's taking all that awareness and putting it onto you. If that's appreciated, and it's appreciated in a whole body way, he will not forget that. And he will remember that, and he will bookmark that, and it will be like, wow, she really loved the way that I paid attention to her there. She really loved the way that I, you know, pressed my belly into hers and breathed with her. She really loved the way that I was just quiet and present with her. She really loved when I looked deep into her eyes. She really loved when I growled in her ear. Maybe. She really loved when I pulled her close to me. So anytime your partner, and this is a question I get a lot, you know, how do I, for lack of a better term, train him to do the things that I like? When he does anything that approximates moving towards the stuff that you like, takes a deep breath, is so grounded, his heart's wide open, he's embodying his king. Like anything that he does that feels really good to you, amplify it. Amplify your pleasure around it. Amplify your, rather than respond at a 4, give him an 8, right? Rather than respond at a 3, give him a 6. Not a 5, give him a 10. Turn it up to 11.
Well, we think we're a 5, but we're actually a 10, but we're actually a 5.
So this is something a lot of people don't know. The more masculine identified your partner is, the denser his nervous system. So you might think you're thanking him at a 5, he's feeling it at a 3, right? So it's not that you have to be this over exuberant, always performative sort of, you know, validator. It's literally that most men, and the more masculine they are, the denser their nervous system is, the more they don't experience energy the same way a feminine being does. It's like it needs to penetrate. And so that's why so many men are drawn to over-exuberant, energetic women. Mm-hmm. The more masculine a being is, the more energy and exuberance lights up their nervous system. So I guess the answer to her question is, whatever that feels like for you, to just be the full expression of joy and appreciation when he moves into you, to be turned on when he breathes with you, to like show him all those things. The more you do that, the more you're going to get it.
Yeah. And practicing responsiveness, right? And doing those practices on the Embodied Relationship Experience platform.
Yeah, you can. I don't want to get too into responsiveness, but that's a very complicated practice. But basically, just letting him know when it feels good. Think of it that way.
Last question. All right. I can't seem to shake the need for a woman's validation. I can also tend to get anxious in relationship. Help.
On the the platform that we've been talking about, the Embodied Relationship Experience platform, there is a practice called the Feminine Cleanse. And it's a 6-month cleanse where you absolutely remove the possibility of relating and exchanging energy from women and create a deeper relationship with men, with your purpose, with your mission, and with the great feminine, with nature, with life, with the world. And that is where I would start. Now, I'd also say find a really great men's group, and stop trying to get validation. Practice instead becoming magnetic, right? So in seeking from the part of us that feels hungry and unfulfilled, we're going to attract the reciprocal. But if we are full and grounded and in our own lives, living our own lives, fulfilled in our own lives, our own relationship with the divine, we now become magnetic. So I would take a good chunk of time. I always recommend 6 months. There's actually like groups now. A bunch of the men that I've taught over the years have actually started feminine cleanse groups. I don't know, you might be able to find one on Reddit, or maybe if you send us an email, we can try to hook you up with somebody. But absolutely removing the habit of chasing and seeking, and instead turn all of that energy into your own life. There's a great old men's group, a men's work saying, which is chase the crown, not the queen. Mm-hmm. So whatever that means to you, like really chase the crown, and that crown is your own self-validation, your own capacity to love yourself, your own mission and purpose in the world, your own deep practice, all of those things. That's what the crown means to me. And if you do that, man, there's so many women looking for men that are capable of doing that and expressing that. And really, the trick is that you want to be able to love her from a place of not needing her, right? And that requires you to be so grounded and steady and solid in your own life that you don't need a woman, but she is somebody to share your depth with, rather than somebody to validate your own worthiness.
Thank you so much, John.
Yeah.
And thank you all so much for sending in these questions. And we really look forward to receiving more and having this opportunity to answer more.
Yeah, this is fun. We'll do this every few months. We might actually start to do something, might even have a live version of it. That would be fun to do as well. We're here in Mount Shasta. We come here a couple times a year. We're doing our very last teacher training cohort and immersion. It's a 5-day immersion up here in Mount Shasta. And we just opened the teacher training cohort for next year. We're over half full. This cohort sells out every year. So if you are interested in jumping into a very, very deep dive, it's a year-long program, 50 to 60 people around the world, 4 deep intensives. So it's a big meal. But if you want to jump into the work at the deepest level, the teacher training cohort just opened, and the link is below in the description. Thank you for joining us on the Embodied Relationship Experience podcast. We'll see you next time.